Imagine this. You're at a forgotten missionary station in the absolute ass end of nowhere, Africa. You are not an elite soldier. You are an engineer, a technician, or worse, a patient lying sick in a makeshift hospital. There are 150 of you, and half can barely stand. And right now, charging towards you is a wave, a living tidal wave of 4,000 of the continent's finest warriors. They feel no fear. They carry spears, and their only goal is to slaughter every last one of you. Your chances of survival are 0. But these 150 dying men didn't just survive. They stood their ground. They fought back. And in one of the most unbelievable battles in history, they broke them. How the hell did they pull it off? This is that story. To understand the madness of Rorke's drift, you first need to understand just how fucked the situation was. This wasn't a fortress. It was 2 glorified barns and a chapel made of mud brick and thatch, a supply depot. The defenders weren't an army. They were a skeleton crew of the British Army's 24th Regiment of Foot, mostly engineers from B Company. Their job was to build bridges, not fight for their lives. Adding to this elite force were a handful of colonial troops and over 30 patients in the hospital, many too sick to even hold a rifle. Their commander, Lieutenant John Chard, was an engineer. He was there to fix a pontoon bridge. He was in charge simply because his commission was a few days older than the infantry officers, Gonville Bromhead. This wasn't a crack team. It was a random collection of guys who drew the universe's shittiest lottery ticket. And the enemy? The Zulu Empire. These weren't just natives with spears. This was a disciplined, terrifyingly effective military machine. Just hours before, this very same Zulu army had annihilated a force of 1,300 British soldiers at the Battle of Isandlwana. They were high on a massive victory, battle-hardened, and they saw Rorke's drift as the final, easy cleanup job. 4,000 of them, the Udiloko, Uthulwana, and Indaluyengwe regiments, veterans all. When the first frantic survivors from Isandlwana arrived at Rorke's drift with the news, panic set in. The officers had a choice: run and be hunted down in the open by the faster Zulu warriors, or stay and turn this shitty little station into a kill box. They chose to stay. They had less than an hour. They built barricades from whatever they could find: heavy 200-pound bags of corn, wooden biscuit boxes, and overturned wagons. A desperate, pathetic wall against a tidal wave. As the sun began to set, they heard it. A low rumble. The men described it as the sound of an approaching express train. It was the sound of 4,000 warriors stamping their feet and beating their spears against their cowhide shields. And then they appeared over the ridge, a black tide of muscle and steel. The Zulu attack was not a chaotic charge. It was a calculated assault. The first wave, 600 strong, sprinted for the south wall. The British had one single, massive advantage: the Martini Henry rifle. This wasn't just a gun. It was a cannon you held in your hands. It fired a massive, bone-shattering 5.57 caliber bullet that could stop a man in his tracks and throw him backwards. The command was given. Fire! A wall of lead erupted from the barricade. The first ranks of the Zulu charge were annihilated, but they didn't stop. They were trained to ignore casualties. They just kept coming, climbing over the bodies of their own comrades. The air filled with smoke, the deafening roar of the rifles, and the screams of the dying. The Zulus reached the barricades. The fight became intimate, brutal. Bayonets against the Zulu stabbing spear, the Iklwa. For hours, this was the reality. A relentless cycle of loading, firing, and stabbing at the screaming faces, trying to get over the wall. The barrels of the rifles grew so hot, they blistered the hands of the men firing them. But the true heart of the battle, the pure, distilled nightmare, took place in the hospital. The western end of the station was defended by this single building, packed with the sick and wounded. The Zulus swarmed it, finding a blind spot the defenders couldn't cover. They smashed through the doors and windows. The roof, made of thatch, was set on fire. What followed was a desperate, room-by-room fight for survival in a burning, smoke-filled labyrinth. As Zulus poured into one room, A small group of soldiers, led by Privates Alfred Hook and John Williams, held them at bay while desperately hacking through the mud brick walls with their bayonets to pull the wounded men through to the next room. Imagine it. The roof collapsing in flames above you, smoke so thick you can't breathe, and in the doorway, a constant stream of warriors trying to kill you, while you try to drag your helpless comrades through a hole in the wall. They defended that hospital, room by agonizing room, for over 2 hours, saving 9 of the 11 patients before the building was completely engulfed in flames. It was an act of raw, unbelievable courage. As night fell, the battle changed. The fighting became a series of relentless, grinding assaults from all sides. The British were exhausted. Their ammunition was running dangerously low. Their barricade was a wreck. They had pulled back to a smaller, final defensive position around the storehouse. They had been fighting for nearly 10 hours straight. This was supposed to be the end. And then, something incredible happened. In a lull between attacks, the exhausted, blood-soaked defenders heard a sound from their own lines. Someone started singing. It was the song Men of Harlech, a famous Welsh battle hymn. Soon, more voices joined in, defiant and loud in the African night. This is what finally broke the Zulu spirit. They were warriors. They understood strength, rage, and the glory of battle. But they did not understand this. They saw a tiny handful of half-dead men, trapped and surrounded, who should have been screaming for mercy. Instead, they were singing. It was a sign of an unbreakable will, a message that these men would not be beaten because they no longer feared death. They were fighting ghosts who had already accepted their fate and were determined to take as many as they could with them. The psychological impact was devastating. The Zulu attacks became less frequent, less coordinated. The will to fight was draining away. As dawn broke, the Zulus were gone. They had melted back into the hills. The sight at Rorke's Drift was apocalyptic. A carpet of bodies lay around the station. The British had lost 17 men killed, with another 15 wounded. The Zulus had lost an estimated 500 warriors. For their incredible stand, 11 Victoria Crosses were awarded to the defenders of Rorke's Drift, the most ever received for a single action by one regiment. It was a victory not just of the rifle over the spear, but of discipline over chaos, of unbreakable spirit over overwhelming force. It's a testament to what a small group of determined people can do when they have nothing left to lose. When 150 dying men decided that their tiny patch of dirt was the most important place in the world and refused to give up one single inch.